Hey everybody, welcome to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron, and I spent the whole morning, last couple of hours anyways, cleaning up my engine assembly mess. This over here was all a big mess. There was trash everywhere. There was tables full of old stuff, crap over there, everywhere. Got everything cleaned up, including a whole nother wipe down on the motor. Got my table all cleaned off, and you guys may have already seen in the background, but it's nice enough outside that my door's open. Sun shining, beautiful day, and I have a 1-day window to get stuff painted. It's 65 degrees right now. It's supposed to be a high of 68, 69 today. The sun is blasting. I should be able to shoot a coat of paint on stuff, let it sit out in the sun for a couple hours to flash, and then it should cure overnight sitting in the shop. And it's supposed to be in the 60s tomorrow, so the temperature should kind of stay up overnight, but we got an 80% chance of rain all day tomorrow, so there's not going to be any painting or anything then. So today's my window. Let's get it done. I got my table cleaned off. We can bring parts out here and put them on here to paint. And we got our motor. I went through and did a full wipe down on the entire thing with wax and grease remover. I got everything, all the machine surfaces where the intake mounts, got our valley filled up, everything, got it all taped off, got all our sensor plugs taped off, and all of our exhaust manifold ports, oil fill ports, water pump ports, everywhere that paint can get in the motor except where the dipstick tube goes, and right here, because I just remembered those two things, are taped off, ready to go. The only thing I have left to do before I shoot some paint on this block is take my little handheld torch and go over all the surfaces of the metal, make sure we got all the oil sweated out of the pores and burn off, all the wax and grease remover sweated out of the pores and burn off. You've seen me do one of these before. You've already seen me do it. I just lightly run a torch over all the metal on the block, and you can kind of see it. It'll like get wet, like it's sweating, and then it dries back out. You shoot paint on it, it sticks. So I'm going to fill the oil dipstick hole and tape off that little breather hose that I forgot. And then we're going to take the little torch and run over the whole thing, and then we're gonna get some paint on it. All right, I got my last two places taped off. I went ahead and took my handheld torch, went over everything, cleaned and dried it, and I got my paint all shook up. So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting a dust coat on all this. If I get over spray on Sparky over here, it's probably getting cleaned up and painted. If I get over spray on Evergreen, probably getting cleaned up and painted. I'm gonna pull my shop door down just so we don't get over spray on a Marlboro Man in there, but anything else I'm not too worried about, and I don't think I'm gonna get that much overspray, so here we go. Alright, first coat's down. Gonna let it sit there and tack up for a little bit until I feel comfortable shooting some more on it. A couple minutes, whatever. We'll throw a second coat on it. Okay, the first coat covered really good, but there's still some thin spots and there's still some other spots I want to go over. And overall, I want to have at least two good coats on it, just for the paint being good and lasting for a long time purposes. So my flash, I gave it time to flash. It's somewhat dry but still a little sticky, which is right where I want it to be. So I'm going to get this can of paint all shook up. We'll shoot our second coat on, and we'll see what it looks like when it's done, but that might be good for the blue on the block. That really makes a big difference, shaking it with that versus shaking it by hand. The paint mixes better, it comes out better, it lays on better, and I don't have a tendency to get runs as much as I would if I just shake it by hand. And you save a lot of energy not standing here going like this for 10 minutes. So I know there's a deal that you can get that holds the can in that's actually made for shaking it. I don't have one. And I don't have the extra money to get one or whatever, so a little bit of Gorilla Tape and an old saw blade seems to work fine. Alright, we got the second coat on. We got it on nice and thick, and it took. And I'm really happy with the coverage. So it's sitting in the sun now, but the sun's kind of coming to where it's going to be over there. And I want to have more room over here to paint the rest of the stuff. So I'm going to push it over there where it's out in the sun. Everything's all closed up. It's not going to hurt anything. And we're just going to let it sit here and bake for the rest of the day until the sun goes down. Of course, I push it over there and cloud comes in front of the sun. One thing I forgot to mention is I cleaned the old spark plugs really good and just threaded them into the spark plug holes about two or three threads, not to where they were like snug or tight or anything, but just threaded them in there just enough that I was plugging the holes. And then we're painting over them, and then obviously we'll pull them back out, put the new plugs in. So anyways, motor's painted. We got a lot more stuff to paint. I'm gonna go get it ready and I'll show you what we got going on. Next item we got up for paint here is water pump, and I'll go further into this a little later, possibly in another video, depends on how far we get with this video. But this is an LS3 water pump off of like a F-body Camaro SS, something like that. And like I said, I'll get more into it later, but The difference between this water pump and the standard truck water pump is your upper hose comes out on the driver's side, and instead of over here. And there's some modifications that you have to make in order to make this water pump work with your accessory brackets from the truck motor. But it's not a huge ordeal, and I'll go over it with you guys, like I said, maybe in this video depending on how far we get, or in another video. But, I'm just taping off all our ports so I don't get paint all over them, and this is going to go engine blue. So I think this is going to be the only other item that's going to get painted blue, so I'm just going to get it done while I got the blue paint shook up and out and everything else. And then after that we should be done with blue, and we can move on to a different color that I can spray all over my hands and make it look like somebody might have painted my fingers. So, just finished taping this off. We'll get some paint sprayed on it and carry on. Trying to get as much of this painted as I can while it's upside down, because I kind of have to let it sit and dry before I can flip it over, or it's going to stick to my table. So we'll get as much done as we can, so once we get it flipped over, it'll be mostly painted. Putting a nice heavy coat on it, so we're only going to need one coat for this. Seems to be covering extremely well, so should take care of it. Alright, we'll let that sit and kind of tack up and dry and do its thing for a little bit until I can flip it over and paint the top side. And then once I can get the top side painted, we can kind of set it off to the side where it's not going to get a different color overspray on it, or maybe I can even take it and hang it on the block. So we'll let it sit there, we'll let it dry up, flip it over and do the other side. Okay, you may notice the water pump's not sitting here anymore. I let it tack up to where I could move it without touching the painted areas, I guess you could say. And I took it over and I went ahead and put the gaskets in and installed it on the front of the motor. And then I was able to shoot the front side of it with it on the motor. And it is now permanently installed. It is permanently painted with the motor. And I was able to get it off of my painting area here so that I could start on something else. we're running out of daylight and I still got more stuff to paint. So here we have our Tejas Steelworks engine mounts, which there's a reason we went with Tejas Steelworks, and I'll explain all that to you later on in this video. We got our Tejas Steelworks training cross member, and we have our factory engine towers that have been taken off and cleaned and sandblasted and all that. They're going to go back in. So we're going to go ahead and put a nice coat of gloss black on these. And you may be saying, the frame is satin black. Why are you painting these gloss? Just because there's contrast. Have a couple things that are a little bit different, but not too much different. And most of this stuff you're not even going to be able to see, but if you happen to look down in there and catch a glimpse of it, it catches the attention of your eye because it's a little bit different from everything else. So there's a reason behind it. It's not just because that's the only paint I had. I'm actually doing it on purpose. I like the contrast black because it sets stuff off. So we're going to go ahead and get these knocked out. Okay, we got a coat on one side of all of that. I'll let it tack up a little bit like we did with the engine and everything else. And I'll come back, put a second coat on it. We'll let that coat hard tack, and then we'll flip everything over, shoot the other side. All right, just to give you guys a little bit of an update. Here's the motor, dry to the touch. I mean, it's not gonna say it's cured or anything, but I can touch it. Spiders can leave webs on it. Water pumps on, everything's painted. It's all blending good. I've got 2 coats on our motor mounts, our tranny cross member, and our engine towers. And I almost forgot the valley cover. I was sitting there running everything through my head saying, okay, I got this, I got that, I got this, I got that. And I went, oh crap, I didn't do the valley cover. And if I wouldn't have went, oh crap, and remembered, I'd have been really pissed off when we go to put this engine in tomorrow and the cover wasn't painted. That would kind of throw off my whole idea of what I'm trying to get accomplished for this video. It would have thrown me off. So anyways, there's an update. Remember the old saying, it's like watching paint dry? It's what it's like right now. So I'm gonna let that dry a little bit more. I'm gonna flip it over, I'll spray the other side. You guys don't need to watch me paint stuff. You've seen me do it 1,000 times in this video. So I'm gonna get those flipped over here in a little bit. They're still a little sticky. I don't want to flip them over and have them stick to the cardboard because then they leave marks and I'll probably get fingerprints in them. And even though I have a certain amount of daylight and a certain amount of temperature where I can paint left, I still don't want to rush it. So I'm gonna let those sit. Once I get those painted, flipped over, 2 coats of paint on the other side, the last thing I have to paint is the transmission. And I need this table to paint it. I need to get it up here. Actually, you know what? I don't really want to lift the thing onto the table. And I got that piece of plywood that's big enough for it over there. So once I get a second coat on my front cover and get it to where I can move it somewhere, I can roll my transmission out onto that piece of plywood, tape it off, and shoot it. I'm gonna go ahead and get the painting done, and then I'll show you guys an update once everything's painted, and we'll see where we're getting to. All right, pretty sure I got everything painted that I need painted for what I want to do. So the sun's starting to go down. I don't want to say the temperature dropped because it went from like 68 to 62, but it has gone down 6 degrees, and as soon as the sun goes the rest of the way down, it's gonna really start to get cool. So I've had my little heater running in here. Obviously with the door open, it don't help, but I've had my little heater running, and it's like 73 or 74 inside from the sun beating in the little heater, and everything out there is dry to the touch. So I'm gonna go ahead and drag it all in here, and we'll let it cure overnight. Alright, I got everything inside. Should be good to go. Let it cure for the night. I know you guys didn't see the transmission, but you'll see it here in a minute as the video goes on. So we should have everything painted. We should have everything ready to go. I'm gonna kind of call it quits and just let this stuff cure overnight. Come back in the morning. It's supposed to be nice again tomorrow, but it's supposed to rain all day, which is fine. That's why I did all this today, so we could work inside tomorrow and still get a bunch of stuff done. But tomorrow we're gonna go through a whole bunch more stuff. We got new torque converters with stalls. We got motor mounts, tranny mounts, everything. We're gonna bolt all this stuff together. We're gonna get it all in the frame, and that's gonna make Shorty that much closer to where we need to be. So I'm gonna head home, do the dad and husband thing. Y'all enjoy this second, and I'll be back. All right, well, it's another fun and exciting day here at Harmon Garage. Showed up to the shop this morning and flipped the lights on, and there was no lights. And granted, it's rained hard and heavy winds all night, storm. So I checked breakers, I checked the meter. We were out of power. Figured maybe a switch on a transformer tripped or something. So I follow my power line out there to my transformer, start looking for the switch, and realize that the line is down that goes from that pole over there to that pole over there. And then I'm going to show you this little clip right here. You may see smoke rolling out of said electrical pole. And I noticed that too. And as I'm standing there looking at it, little flame starts coming out of the pole. And then it goes boom, and this big old fireball flies off of it. And I was like, whoa, I'm gonna back up and kind of get back away from this. And boom, does it again. And I was like, man, nobody's gonna believe this is happening if they don't see it. So I pull my phone out and I put it up there and I hit the record button, and it goes boom, biggest one yet. And I'm like, oh man, I got that on video. I'm gonna put this on YouTube. It's gonna be cool. Well, in my nervous rage of wow, adrenaline rush, everything going on, I never switched my phone from photo to video. So I've got a photo where the video should have started, and I got a photo where the video should have ended. So needless to say, I got that clip I showed you, smoke rolling off of the pole, but as far as the boom, no, none of that. Highly disappointed. But you may hear in the background, you may have seen already, my parents happen to have a little 900 watt max generator. I don't have any generators, but I am about as dedicated as you can get to trying to do this YouTube thing and getting these videos out. So we have lights. Power company says that I'm the only customer out of service due to said pole and down line. And there's lots of other customers around here that are out of power. So today's Friday. They said I'll be lucky if I have power Monday. I'm gonna do what I can do. Hopefully that generator sitting out there running is not too annoying. Just a murr in the background. I tried to get it as far away from the building as I could, so hopefully you can't hear it too well. And we're gonna keep working. I've got minimal power. I've got enough lighting that we can see what we're doing in here, which is what I was aiming for. I don't know if we're gonna be able to use drills or anything like that, but if not, we can get the major stuff done. I don't know that we're gonna need any drills or anything right now anyways. We can get all the major stuff done and then worry about the little stuff later when we have, you know, luxuries like power and whatnot. So I got all our stuff sitting over here. Been sitting all night drying. We got our beautiful blue GM blue motor, all painted up and pretty. We got motor mounts. We got transmission cross member. We got motor towers. We've got our cleaned up painted transmission. Hey, I just set this on top of the tape. Apparently it pushed down through the tape, which isn't hurting anything. We got to pull the tape off anyways. But anyways, everything that we need for right now is pretty much painted up, and we've got lights until the generator runs out of gas. So let's get to work. All right, I went digging through the boxes. I found our new rear cover, found our motor mounts, found our transmission mount, found our bell housing bolts. We've got our flywheel to put on here, and the power company just showed up, so I'm going to walk out there and see what they have to say, because maybe they'll get some power going for me. So be right back. All right, I have absolutely nothing negative to say about the power company other than the fact that they send me a bill every month. They got out here, they brought like 20 people, 10 trucks, knocked it out. New pole, new line, everything. I got power again. I'm stoked because I really want to get this done today. So since I have power and I'm not backfeeding with a generator, excuse me, we're gonna stay till we get there. So while they were doing the power and stuff, I went ahead and put my lift plate back on the motor. I got my cherry picker set up over here. I got bolts to put our motor mounts together. I got our rear cover and seal out. So we got our motor mounts and we have our towers. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the new motor mounts and bolt them to the towers, and then we'll bring them over here and bolt them in the truck. Get all those mounted and tightened down, and then I'll get back with you guys and we'll start dressing up the motor and transmission and whatever with all the stuff that we need to do to it so we can set it in. So I'm just gonna knock out the motor mounts because you bolt the motor mounts to the towers, you bolt the towers in the frame. Not something that I need to go step by step through with you guys. So I'll get it done, I'll bring you back. 15 seconds ago for you guys, 15 hours ago for me. I just told you guys that I was gonna bolt the motor mounts to the motor mount towers, bolt the motor mount towers in the frame, and then we'd carry on. If you're decent at math and you put 2 and 2 together, that tells you that 15 hours ago, it's the next day for me now. And I spent longer than I want to admit yesterday trying to do this, and I've been on it for a couple hours this morning. Not gonna get into details. Long story short, the motor mounts and the motor mount towers are in. And just in case anybody runs across this and needs to know, half-ton motor mount towers And 3/4 ton / 1 ton motor mount towers are different. I already knew that. But when I went to put the 6.2 motor in the other frame for the 48 project, I didn't have motor mount towers in that frame because I took them out, yada, yada, yada. I didn't have them. So I've got a buddy that parts out square bodies, and he's like, yeah, I got a set, I'll send them to you. Okay, so I took the ones from this frame, put them on the 48 project, put the diesel motor in it, and he sent me a set. Well, he had them laying there. He didn't necessarily know that there was a difference, and he sent me 3/4 ton motor mount towers. And it took me a long time last night, over probably an hour, to figure out they were the wrong ones, because I've had this, if you've watched the series on this truck, I had this truck stripped down to bare frame rails, had cross members out and everything. So I just assumed or figured that the ones that he sent me were the ones that I needed. And I'm thinking that having the cross members out and the suspension off, something with the frames off, and they're just not fitting. So I literally unbolted the engine cross member, had bars and screwdrivers and everything trying to make those fit. And then I called him and I said, hey, do you have any idea what these towers came off of? And he's like, oh yeah, they came off of a 75 3/4 ton. And I was like, oh, that's the problem. It was already dark. I was thinking, man, Kermit's sitting out there without a motor in it. I've got another truck coming in a couple days that I've got for parts for other projects that doesn't have a motor in it, so I can have towers for Kermit. I'll steal the towers out of Kermit. We'll clean them up and paint them. We'll put them in here, and we'll be able to carry on. So I'm telling you guys, there's a greater power that's messing with me. They don't want me to get 3 videos out this week. They don't want me to get this motor and transit and this frame. Something. I don't know what it is, but we went from the power outage with being off all day, needing a new pole, to motor mount towers being wrong, to it's end of story. Motor mounts and motor mount towers are in. I have the cherry picker all set up right here in front of the motor. Next thing I'm gonna do, hang the motor from the cherry picker, get it off the stand. We need to change out that rear cover. Flex plate, flywheel, whatever you want to call it. Torque converter, bolt transmission up, get motor mounts on the motor. Actually, I'm going to put the motor mounts on the motor before I take it off the stand, just so it's not swinging when I'm trying to do it. That's what we're going to do. Block side motor mounts, get it off of the stand, get it ready to put in this dang truck. Okay, like I mentioned before, we're using Tejas Steelworks mounts. The reason the owner of the truck wanted to go with these mounts is because these particular mounts from Tejas Steelworks allow you to use the factory AC compressor in the factory mounting position down on the side of the block. And he wanted to keep that there and do that and run it all factory because it's been working all these years. Chevy keeps doing it, must be good. So it's got an arrow down here, points towards the front, and this plate goes on top. They come with hardware. They're really nice stuff. I'm going to go ahead and get these put on, and then we'll get this thing hanging. Maybe, if I can get the dang bolt started. There we go. Same thing on the other side. Alright, she's hanging and a swinging. I'm going to have to move it back so we got room to do stuff behind it and so I can get that engine stand out of the way. I'm going to move cameras around, get parts over here, and we'll keep going. Alright, and go ahead and do our front cover first, or our rear cover, I'm sorry, for obvious reasons, because if I don't do it first, once I get the flywheel and the transmission and stuff on, it's going to make it kind of hard to do it. So, go ahead and get it done and out of the way. It's another one of those things. This doesn't show any signs that it's been leaking, but it's a part. It's a rear main that, you know, rear mains are kind of notorious for leaking on stuff, especially when they get older and whatnot. So, you got it apart, just do it. Got all the bolts out, and of course, it's gonna give me a hard time. There we go. Maybe. Now, there we go. Okay. It appears somebody's been in here before and siliconed the crap out of this. Now, once again, this is one of those things where I don't use silicone on rubber gaskets. I will use it down here at the corners to make sure that it's good, but I don't want it all up here. I mean, they filled this whole void right here. That's supposed to be like an oil crossover. That whole void is filled with silicone. Now, did they do it on purpose? I don't know. Is it good? No, definitely not. So, we'll take our time and clean it up. I'm going to take some towels down here and stuff them in so that nothing falls in that small gap that we have between the block and the oil pan, and just go through with a razor blade, get as much of this crap off as we can. Not sure why somebody would use silicone in here, but hey, maybe they know something I don't know. If you know that you're supposed to use silicone on this, let me know in the comments, because I'm really curious to know why you would need to. You got a good rubber seal back here. There's no reason that you should have to gob silicone all over everything. So, just more reason for me to believe, which when I found out there was no alignment dowels on the heads, I automatically knew this motor had at least had the heads off of it before. Now, I'm going to go out and say that it's probably been out of the truck before. So, you can still see the cross hatching. Everything looked really good inside. Maybe it got freshened up at one point or another. Or, who knows? Maybe somebody had to put a transmission in it because, you know, it had a 4L60 behind it. And if you know anything about 4L60s, there's a good chance that by 165,000 miles, it was needing a new one or rebuilt. So, it could be the case. Maybe I don't know why they took the heads off, but maybe they took the transmission out, and why they had it out, they went ahead and did this rear seal. Maybe this rear seal was leaking. I don't know. Alright, I got all that excess taken off without getting any in the pan. I know I got our cam all lubed good because it's squeezing out the back here. I'll wipe this down, make sure we got all of the excess silicone out of here, and I gotta go grab a tube of silicone so I can put a little bit down at the corners, and I gotta grab the new cover. Okay, so here's our new cover. New gasket, came with new bolts, which I have in my pocket. And like I said, I'm not going to smear silicone all over this dang thing like it had. I'm going to take a little bit on my finger. I'm going to come down here and smash it into the corners where the block meets the pan and the rear cover. And that's it. Nothing else. Now there is a tool that you can use. I actually have it sitting right over there, but I don't have the right bolts for it. But it slides over this. I might go ahead and use it anyway, it's just not bolted on. But it slides over this. You can bolt it on there, and then it's tapered. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but it's tapered out, so when you push your seal over it, it kind of walks it over, and you don't take a chance of tearing your seal. So we're going to try it. We're just not going to bolt it on because, like I said, I don't have the red bolts. So slid on nice and smooth. I don't have it 100% pushed all the way on yet, but it's over the edge of the crank already, because we need to adjust our gasket here, because it's just kind of moving all over the place wherever it wants to. So. Teach it a lesson, get it set in place, and then go ahead and push this the rest of the way on. Or maybe I screwed up and I gotta loosen this all back up and get those bolts started and then tighten them down. So I'm not gonna make you guys watch me do the same thing twice. Learn from my mistakes. I'm gonna get those in there and then we'll continue on. Okay, before I go any further, I didn't end up having to take this cover back loose or the oil pan or anything of that sort. I got a little pick and went up in there, and my holes in my oil pan, I don't know how to explain it. Like, the holes were there, but they were tight, the bolts didn't want to go through them, and everything was lined up, and once I got it, I just, you know, put a little bit of oomph on the screw. I did it by hand instead of with the impact, so I could kind of push on it and thread it at the same time. It threaded through. They went all the way up in there, and everything's mounted nice and tight now, so no issues whatsoever. Today's my son's birthday, and we're gonna go do birthday lunch and presents and whatnot. So I've got to run for a minute, but as soon as I get done with that, I'll come back to the shop and we'll keep going. All right, we're back again. So next thing, now that that's all done, is getting our flex plate put back on, and just like always, we're going to put a little bit of Loctite on the bolts, because you definitely don't want these backing out on you. Okay. Got some Loctite on all those. Got them all started. Run them down. Okay. Alright. We got our transmission right over here, just out of frame. I got to clean up this little mess that I made right here. I'm going to go grab our torque converter and bring the torque converter over, and we'll start getting the torque converter in transmission bolted to motor next. Okay, so we got our transmission here, and like I may have already mentioned, I don't know if this is actually how they classify it, but I'm calling it a stage 2. It's got some performance upgrades to it to hold a little bit more horsepower and better shift and whatnot. So I don't know if the place that rebuilt it actually calls it a stage 2. That's just what I'm referring to it as. It's not just a stock rebuild, it's upgraded. So then we have our converter from Performance Torque Converters of Texas. It's, I'd have to talk to the owner of the truck to get the specs on it. I don't remember what it is exactly. Memory serves me right. I'm thinking it's like a 2800 stall, but I could be wrong. So I'll get that info, and before this series is over, I'll know for sure. But I want to give a shout out to Clutches and Gears in Garland, Texas. They're the ones that rebuilt this transmission. So shout out to them. I'm going to take and pour some fluid into our torque converter, because you always want to, well, I might not need to, it might be pre-filled. Or it's just got to push a lot of air out. Anyways, you never want to put a torque converter in dry. So I am going to put a quart or two of fluid, or however much it seems like it wants in there. And then we'll get it stuffed in there. When you do this, you just want to take your time, because you'll think it's full, but it's really not. It takes a little while for the air pockets, the way it's designed, the way the fluid goes in, it takes a little while for the air pockets to work their way out to allow fluid to go in. Like I'm watching it, and it looks like it's not going to move anymore, and then all of a sudden a whole bunch of air comes out and it drops down. I think they may have already had a cord in it, and that's why they had the plug on it when they shipped it. They might have dynoed it and it had fluid in it, because usually you can get about 1.5 to 2 quarts in here, and I've got about 2/3 of a quart in, and it doesn't seem to be going down anymore. I'm not going to rush it because I want to make sure it's full, but I just want to, I'm sure it had fluid in it. I could tell it looked like it was wet at the bottom when I took the cap off, but it didn't look full. Now it's looking pretty full, so. Yeah, it's not letting no more air out, so now what we're gonna do is hopefully not dump fluid all over the place, because we got too much in there. But you got three steps that it's gonna go in. Like 3 clicks. Get it in a little ways. I think it went right in. Yeah, it's got to be seated all the way, because it can't go in any further, or it's going to hit the bell housing. So, yeah. All right, it's all the way in. It's full of fluid. And it's time to bolt it up to the motor. So, I'm just going to mention this now, because I'm thinking about it so I don't forget. You put your torque converter bolts in through the starter hole here on the side. I've got brand new bolts to put in there. I'm not going to put them in right now when I hang it on the motor, because it'd be a lot easier to put them on with it bolted in the truck. So we're going to get the motor and trans bolted in the truck, and I may not put the torque converter bolts in this video, but obviously they will get put in. But that's, if you guys see me bolt it up and throw it in there and go, wait a second, he didn't put torque converter bolts in, I know, I didn't. I'm going to, but I'm going to wait until it's all mounted in there. Alright. See how well we can do this. Sorry if I stick my butt in your face, guys. I'm just kidding. Not sure. I can get it set up on there, but okay. It's gonna make me a little dizzy. Of course, the camera battery died. I went and got a piece of wood, put it up under here, and was able to tilt the transmission to where it needed to be. And right when I did that, or right when I got started doing that, I heard the bloop bloop, which means the camera battery's dead and it shut off. So, you guys didn't miss much. I just kind of got the transmission tilted a little bit, got it stuck up there, and I was able to get bolts started. And it's pretty close to, it was pretty close to being in. So now I'm just generally, as you can probably tell, I'm almost effortlessly turning the wrench. I'm just using 2 bolts to slowly and evenly pull it in. So, it was ready to go. It lined itself up, but just the way it's kind of hanging, it, I couldn't push it in and get it to stay. So just use the bolts to pull it up real quick, and she is all the way seated. Go ahead and get the rest of the bolts put in here. Alright. Now, this transmission is not the one that came off of this motor, because this motor was in a Denali that was 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, whatever. Now, that being said, this dipstick tube that doesn't want to go in is designed to bolt right there. And it can't bolt right there because there's no provisions in the block for a bolt. So I'm putting it in there to fill the hole, and not something that we'll have to sort out later on. But it's in there to fill the hole for now. The dipstick is. I can probably order a dipstick for a 4L60 and a 2-wheel drive, you know, later model truck, and dipstick will bolt over here or something, so it works better. So that's what we'll do, but for the time being, that's going to be in there to fill the hole. And I think we're ready to start doing cross members and transmissions and stuff. So, transmission cross members and all that, setting it in there. So I'm going to get all that stuff sorted out and together. And away we go. I went ahead and stabbed our transmission mount on. Nice and easy. Held it up there, put the 2 bolts in, tightened them down. Now we have our Tejas Steelworks engine cross member. I've showed it to you guys before, I think earlier in the video when I was painting. And it's gonna go in here like so. I'm not exactly sure where. That kind of looks a little far forward, but I won't know until I get the motor and tranny up there. But by just setting it in there, at least it's there, and while the motor's hanging and I'm starting to lower it down, I can guide it back and forth where it needs to be to line the mount up. I'll get the motor mount, I'll get the motor and trans up there. I'll get the transmission cross member lined up where it needs to be for the mount. I'll get the motor mount bolts in. I'll take the weight off of the cherry picker so the motor and trans is all sitting in there on its own. And then we'll have to drill the 4 holes in the frame, through the frame. Well, hopefully the holes in the frame will line up and we'll only have to drill through the cross member. But we're gonna have to drill holes to bolt the cross member in. So I'm gonna set you guys up on the tripod and let you watch what we're doing, but we're ready to pick this motor up, set her in the hole. All right, a lot of work goes into this kind of stuff, and you work and you work and you work, and there's not a lot of, what's the word I'm trying to think of, like, you guys know what I'm saying. Like, you put a lot of work into it, and then you get satisfaction. That's what I'm looking for. You put a lot of work into it, and don't like get anything back from it, and then you get to a certain point where you get some satisfaction, like, wow, yeah, that looks good. That was worth all the work that I put into it. And I'm telling you what, setting this motor and transmission down in this frame, satisfying. I put a lot of hours in on this thing this week, and it's fun. I enjoy it, but to be able to see something come together like this really pays dividends, really makes it great. So my buddy Jeff, who is the owner of this truck, really kind of itching to see the exhaust manifolds on it. So we're going to throw the exhaust manifolds on for him so he can see it, because he's real patient with me and my schedule and you know, not working on the truck all day every day and stuff like that, because he knows I've got other stuff that I got to do and other stuff I got to do for myself and all that. So he's real patient with me and stuff, and it's his turn to get some work done, and he wants to see what the exhaust manifolds look like on this sucker. So by God, we're going to show him. I didn't do some big unboxing for you guys because, for one thing, I had already opened the box, And second, as many times as I tried to do like some big box opening, unveil looking thing, just never really works out for me. So box is already open, and we've got some Hooker performance manifolds. I wouldn't necessarily call them headers, they're kind of headers, but they're like performance exhaust manifolds. And the reason that he bought these is because they were recommended by Tejas Steelworks to work with their mounts. They're pretty cool. They're ceramic coated aluminum, and they seem to be very well made. So we're going to put them on. I'm going to have to say I think they're going to look pretty slick against this blue. That's my opinion. We'll see if my opinion's right or not. We got brand new ARP exhaust manifold slash header bolts that are very well packaged and almost impossible to open. And thankfully, the gaskets have the little cutouts in them so you can put the bolts in and hang the header, manifold, whatever it is. And without having to fight it all. So I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, so manifold side down. Okay, that's going to go like that. Get this thing on here. See what it looks like. Trying really hard not to scratch any of the paint, because not only does it look great, but I put a lot of effort into it. Don't want to mess it up, because if I mess it up, I'll redo it. I really don't want to redo it. Boom. And as I tell you guys all the time, these heads are aluminum, and we try not to run impact into aluminum, so we're going to do it all by hand. As soon as I find my socket. You gotta be kidding me. Oh, probably can't find it because it's on the impact. Good place for it. Now this isn't a common practice that I heard somewhere or somebody taught me or anything else, but anytime I put on headers, exhaust manifolds, intake manifolds, anything like that, I always start in the center and work my way out. That way, if this thing's a little bit warped or something, you're not forcing the warp in by tightening the ends down first. You're gradually putting it back straight where it needs to be. So, sure there's a torque spec for these. I'll look it up later on and go back and torque them, but for right now, I want to get them on so we can see what they look like. Not going to drill the holes for the transmission cross member today because this is an extra work day for me this week, and I'm trying not to be here all day. And like I said, it's my son's birthday, and he asked me to watch football with him today, so I'm going to get this wrapped up so I can get home and we can watch football. But transmission cross members in there. It's sitting on top of the frame. The transmission's sitting on it, bolted to it. Everything's fine. It's not going anywhere. I already squared it up before I decided not to drill the holes today. So that won't be a big deal. Just get under there and drill 4 holes. I'm going to finish up getting these headers on and bring you guys in closer, show you what they look like. Once we get the headers on, we're going to put the new spark plugs in it just to fill the holes. I don't like having holes open. It's not the time of year for mud daubers right now, but who knows? But this could still be sitting here when mud dauber season comes back. And I don't want mud daubers making nests in the cylinders. So I'm going to take the ones I use to plug holes for paint out, put the new ones in, put the valley cover on because it's painted and I want to see what it looks like. And see if we got time to do some more. If not, that might be it. So you guys hang tight. I'm going to get this other manifold on. You already watched me put that one on. You can't see me over here anyways. So let me get this finished up. And we'll keep going. All right. Last thing we're going to do today, put this front cover on, or front cover, valley cover, top cover. The gasket goes that way, not the other way that I was trying to put it on. So we're going to throw this on. Obviously, as you can see, it's painted. And I also replaced the 2 grommets that go in the bottom where the knock sensors go. So, got the gasket in case you can't really tell, I've cut the tape back to the edge, so we're not setting the gasket on top of tape. It's cut at the edge of the head where this won't be touching it. So when we go to pull that tape, it'll just take it all off. We won't have any pinched in under the gasket or nothing. So, just gonna put these bolts in. We're gonna tighten these bolts down, and that's gonna do it. I'm gonna grab the other camera. I'll bring you guys in here, show you what it looks like up close, show you those exhaust headers, performance manifolds. Got the spark plugs in already. Bet you guys didn't catch that, did you? Nope, you didn't. So we're gonna run these down. I'll show you guys everything else that's done and where we're gonna leave off for this one. We made it. We finally got to the point that I wanted to get to finish this video. And in the process, this shop is destroyed. There's a mess over there. There's a mess over there. There's a mess on the apron. I don't even have energy or the want to clean it up today, so it'll still be here next time. But we got where we wanted to be. Engine and trans are in. Stands are in. Cross members there. Like I said, I just got to drill 4 holes and put bolts in it. No big deal. But here's our manifolds up close. We got our brand new spark plugs in there that I need to come back with a rag and wipe off, because apparently my 5/8 socket is a little dirty on the inside. No big deal. I'll wipe those down in a minute. But valley covers on, painted. Look at that paint job. It almost looks professional. We got our Tejas Steelworks mounts down here. They look really cool with the gloss black against the blue. And then there's the yellow zinc grade 8 bolts that came with it. That looks neat. It just looks good. It all looks so good. Come on. Anyways, I'm not gonna sit here and keep making you look at the same thing. Here's the other side. Looks about the same, only backwards. We have to get a new dipstick like I mentioned before, but other than that, we made quite a bit of progress in this video. I mean, it may not seem like a whole lot, like, oh, you painted stuff and bolted a trans to an engine and set it in, but there's a lot more to it than that, and it was a lot of progress. I mean, we've made a lot of progress. There's a whole nother video I can make about bolting more stuff on the engine, which we'll probably do. We still got to figure out drive shafts, run brake lines, run fuel lines, all that stuff, and then the body work starts. But I'm happy with where we're leaving off with this video. I think it looks great. I'm going to show it to you guys one more time. Really happy with it, and I'm sure Jeff will be too. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next time.